So, Bob, I hope you don't mind talking about you a little bit. So, 8 years ago, back when I was an intern at Christ Church, Stephanie and I met a smiley, friendly guy named, um, he was kind and courteous. And as I learned over a cup of coffee over at uh, Bipartisan Cafe, which was like my regular haunt, a huge nerd. Um, I was asking him, well, like, what do you do for fun? You know, just one of those get to know you cups of coffee that you have with folks that you meet at church, right? And he is like, well, I work out. I'm like, yeah, yep. I like to go on hikes and stuff. Yeah, I explore a bit. I'm like, yeah. Standard stuff. I read comics. Yes. Say more. Well, and he started listing some of his favorite comics. One of them was X-Men. And he mentioned in particular this big milestone event in the middle of the 90s, just the gross excesses of 90s comics, the Age of Apocalypse, which was very near and dear to my 10-year-old heart. We've been friends ever since. I'm sad that you're leaving soon, Bob. Bob's actually moving to Colorado. Now, I'm not sad about the situation he's moving into. I'm just very selfishly sad that he's not going to be here anymore. But I am really grateful that you're going on to what sounds like an awesome situation. Now, normally we would have these conversation sermons the second Sunday of the month. For those of you who don't know, hey, when is he doing those? That's what I'm trying for. But Bob's moving at that point, so we couldn't really do it then. So we're doing the November conversation now. Bob, would you come on up? Now, those of you who may be wondering, all right, that's cool, Giuseppe's friend, Bob. Why do I care about that? Well, because my friend's moving. That's really sad for me. But also, Bob has a doctorate in psychology, and he's worked in Trillium Family Services residential mental health care facility for 8.5 years. The stories I have heard. So he's the most tenured person in his position. Yeah. So 8.5 years is considerably beyond. And I wanted to hear some of his learnings as, you know, a person of faith and also a mental health expert about how he's stayed in such difficult work and how he stayed healthy in such difficult work. And Bob's helped me grow quite a bit over the years. It feels like a wonderful gift to be able to share any of his insights with the rest of you. Travis, you're raising your hands. Okay. Sometimes the little tail, I think, is temperamental, right? Okay. All right. All right. Can everybody hear Bob? Can you say something?
Can you hear me now? Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm also putting the timer on for 30, at this point, we'll say 28 minutes, just out of respect for everybody's time, so that we can say goodbye to March, when we're all done. Before I forget, Bob, family and I got you something. Here you go.
Thank you. It's Batman. All the kids at work know this. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
It's some reading material. I hope you can enjoy them while you're settling in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I refrained from getting an action figure this time because I know you're lightening up the load.
I'm trying to downsize before I leave. Yeah.
So I have some questions for you. And I think it would be helpful for people to hear a little bit of your backgrounds,
Yeah.
just briefly, in a paragraph or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Ohio, and from Ohio, after I graduated undergrad in psychology, I decided to live abroad in Taiwan for a year to teach English, and lived in Kaohsiung. And then while I was in Taiwan, I applied for graduate school in California, did my internship in Texas, and then now I'm in Oregon. There we go. And soon to be in Colorado. So I like to travel, meet people, learn from people, and take that into my professional and personal life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And how were you raised?
I was raised Baptist
Baptist in Ohio,
in Ohio.
but not
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Now Cincinnati,
Yeah.
southwest of Columbus,
Yeah.
Grove City. Yeah.
Uh, so you work in residential mental health care, and for those of us who are unfamiliar with what that's like, could you just share what your regular experiences happen to be like, and the population you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a therapist and been there for 8.5 years, as Pastor Giuseppe said. Average stay is 2 to 3 years because I work with an acute population. So I work with kids 6 to 17, but my unit's primarily 6 to 12. So they're the most acute kids in the state, meaning
What
that.
do you? Oh, you're getting to
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're acutes.
Uh-huh.
Some of us might think that just means pinch the
Uh,
cheeks. Some of us might
oh,
think
that too.
small. What do you mean by acute?
Got me? Okay. Okay. Acute means that they have the most severe behaviors, so meaning that danger to self or others, to the point in which they're unable to live in the community. So it's my job to help stabilize them and to provide resources so they can return to the community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So what are some of the stressors of your job?
Oh, where to start? So I think you might find it surprising that it's not the kids. Yeah, yeah. So with the kids, I tend to find that the kids are the most forgiving, show the most patience. Um, the most stressful part is some of the families that I work with, or let's say they have a hard time showing up for the kids. Um, so just being there for the kids when families don't show up for visits or regularly attend therapeutic sessions or show up for birthdays. It's really hard in that situation.
Yeah. Now, some of the situations that you've had to deal with would have been like my very last day of work, I think.
Yeah.
You've had lots of stuff thrown at you. You've been spat on quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of. I'm going to share some of the. I'm going to keep some of the more extreme ones to myself.
Mhm.
But pretty tough stuff. Not to mention, like, you're trying to help stabilize these kids, and some of the parents and families that you're working with are doing the opposite of what's healthy for them. I imagine that must be really daunting at times. So that's like just the stressors of your job. What about like just the stressors of your daily life? Just being here in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I identify as gay, and I'm also black. I think you can see that part. So just everyday stressors just in life. So I hold multiple identities, and just walking through those identities, I experience stressors out in the community, at large. Being able to be seen and heard can be a challenge. Um, so I tend to be an optimist, and just the way that I view life, I consider it. I'm very, very blessed in the sense that I've been able to live a lot of experiences that many people have not lived, and I continue to live those experiences. Um, so yeah, I can speak more, but I'm trying to be mindful of the time as well because I tend to be long-winded.
You're doing great, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
as Stephanie knows, we usually are not wont for words when we're hanging out and connecting.
Mm.
We'll talk
Uh,
at length about many geeky things. We go and we see the Marvel movies often together, and then I just want to talk for hours after that. Like, did you feel that feeling I felt? Guardians of the Galaxy, this last one was like that for me. And Stephanie's like, yeah, it's fine. It was a fine movie. Bob and I are like, let's get in the nuance though. Like, but Rocket Raccoon represents just so much. So, given all of these stressors that you deal with on a regular basis, a daily basis, really, how do you manage all of that stress? Like you're one of the healthiest people I know, and you challenge me to utilize the tools that I have too. So how do you do that? How do you manage your health with all of these stresses?
Great question. So after Giuseppe asked me that question earlier this week, I was thinking to myself, like, what do I do? Because I just consider it a part of my daily life. I wake up in the morning, I run 3.4 miles. It's
As one does.
Yes, I have a treadmill. Yes. Yeah, so I do that just to get the blood going, and I'm very intentional about what I hear, listen to, what I'm exposed to, whether that be music, the media. It's not that I'm uninformed, but I'm aware that there's a lot of negativity in the media, and I find that the more that I'm exposed to negativity, that has a negative impact on my own mental health. So I listen to uplifting music, programming, affirmations around me, lots of positive things. I'm constantly surrounded by things. And internally, like I talk to God all the time. When I wake up this morning, I don't consider it a moment I need to pray rather than it's throughout the day. So for example, talking to God today, saying, hey, could you give me the strength to speak in front of a church? Because I tend to be more of a one-on-one type of talk person rather than a large group, but I feel very comfortable here. So that's an example. Giving the strength to show up for the kids that I work with, show up for the families that I work with, having that unconditional positive regard, because even when I can be upset about parents not showing up or not being there for their kids, I have to remind myself that they're going through something as well, otherwise they would be there. And just having an open ear, an open heart for them. I've seen a lot of parents make a lot of progress over the time that I've worked with them, other professionals have worked with them. And what I find to be one of the biggest factors in growth is support. Support tends to be very, very important, and it's what that support is, how that support shows up. I find that the families, the kids, once they receive that support, then they're willing to do the work and willing to break past mental barriers they may have that previously have prevented them from achieving their goals.
So sometimes when we're involved in work that can be emotionally, spiritually draining, I think we can be susceptible to like compassion fatigue, or like empathy fatigue. How do you avoid that?
Mm-hmm. So finding moments to ground myself, that's really important. whether that be walking, whether that be going to a sensory deprivation chambers, which is a bit extreme, but I love it. I love it. Yes. So I do the floats. I do some wave therapy, which entails laying on a massage a table and feeling sound waves throughout my body. And I wear noise canceling headphones. Any moment when I can remove myself from stimuli, I really enjoy that because I'm constantly hearing things, having needs in my job. There's just a lot that goes on. So moments of silence are great. Yeah.
So my next question on my list is about like your specific spiritual practices, but you're naming some of these. And I think for some of us, we may hear some of these and be like, that's not a spiritual practice, that's running. That's not a spiritual practice, that's a sensory deprivation tank. But I think whatever we're intentionally grounding ourselves in, that is a practice, all of life is spiritual. And I tend to view spirituality as that which connects us to ourselves, to God, the divine, to everything else, everyone else. So whatever is helping us connect, whatever is life-giving, that's spiritual. It's when we are disconnected, or numbing. It may be necessary for survival, but it is very dangerous for our connections and our thriving.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had another point I was going to ask. I'm not going to ask that question. I was going to ask this different question. Oh, I know what it is now. A number of us have difficulty focusing. And some of the things that you're talking about require focus. So I mentioned last week that I did a spiritual practice with my dad, called heartfulness meditation. And it was this new thing that was so helpful for me. And I'm just like, oh, it's rest, it's calm for my soul. And Dad, you want some calm, right? Because I know he's a very flustered person, we call him Grumpy Grandpa. So he's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And I lead a minute, and it requires 15 minutes of silence. And when we were done, he's like, I can't believe you do that to people. That was the hardest experience of my life. So he has adult diagnosed ADHD. It's, at the time he was a year into knowing he has it. So focusing and quiet and stillness, that very difficult for him. A sensory deprivation tank, I think, would be hell for him. It might even be for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you maintain focus?
Yeah. So I too have ADHD and was diagnosed as an adult. And for me, I had to train myself to meditate. That's another practice I do, transcendental meditation. I've been doing it for about 7 years now. And that consists of 20 minutes of meditation, preferably 2 times a day, with a mantra. And the mantra just helps you to just keep a rhythm. It's not necessarily a word. But for me, I find that the first, I would say, 10, 15 minutes, if there's a lot going on in my life, I'll have a lot of thoughts. And once that 15 minutes hits, then there's this sense of calm. So with practice, I'm able to achieve that sense of calm a bit quicker. And I think with any practice, self-care practice, it can be a bit challenging at first. But once you practice, you have a routine, then you're fine. There's a lot of great benefits from it.
Yeah. So with just a few minutes left, why do you think spiritual practices are helpful for us in maintaining our mental and spiritual health?
Yeah, I think it's really important, just with the news in the world, everything going on in the world. I think it's important to be a part of the world, where at the same time make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So I have to remind myself, if I'm not at my best, if I'm not in a good place, then I don't have anything to give to others. So that requires getting enough sleep, making sure your diet is on point for the most part. I like sweets and cookies. um, and making sure you're taking time for yourself. Especially, I find myself when I'm really, really busy, then I tend to minimize the importance of my own self-care. But that's the time I realize that I need it the most. Um, so there can be, there's a lot of negative, how should I say, the negative, um, there's a negative impact on health. I can't think of the words right now. But with self-care, you're finding a lot of benefits. Um, if you just start a routine, start slow, and then slowly increase it to the point in which it's just part of your daily life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, I'm wondering if any of you have questions for this mental health professional and practitioner of certain spiritual practices who's here. Probably not going to have him like in this role again, unless you come and visit.
Yeah, I'll visit. I'll
Yeah,
visit.
yeah, you better.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for Bob? Blair. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we were thinking of the title, it was about how to have longevity in stressful situations, endurance, and for him, he's identifying a lot of self-care intersecting with spiritual practices. So, yeah, it's not a practice of longevity, I suppose. I know it's misleading because some of the other ones have that, but I'm like, no, I want to keep it simple, a simple title.
Yeah.
So my apologies. Marilyn, are you allowed to teach the parents spiritual practices or meditation?
Yeah, I can't frame it in the sense of spiritual practices, but I'm allowed to help them with meditation, to help them with journaling, referrals to other resources out in the community for individual therapy, group therapy. A lot of my parents have a history of domestic violence, substance abuse, so making sure they have those referrals. Um, and then also helping my parents to reach a point of forgiving themselves. I find that guilt is a huge barrier when it comes to parents showing up, guilt and shame. Um, and I have a few parents on my caseload right now because during the course of therapy, they're realizing a lot of things they've done that have had a negative impact on their kids. And because of the guilt and shame, it's prevented them from showing up to some of the sessions and visits. So it's actually just.
Yeah. Yes, Barbara. So the question is, what's going to happen to your clients and the parents when you move on?
Yeah, so I'm currently going through that right now. There's a number of therapists that are taking over for me. Many of the families do not want me to leave. Yeah. And I'm just known for just going the extra mile with a lot of the kids and families that I work with. Um, and yeah, it's hard to go. It's hard to go. While at the same time, ever since I've been a kid, I've been led just by the calling. So when I left to live in Taiwan, I didn't know anybody. When I moved here, I didn't know anybody. California, I didn't know anybody. Colorado, I know maybe 4 or 5 people. But that's like part of the journey, part of the lesson. Like, I find that I grow the most from just listening and being willing to go with the calling rather than listening to what I think should happen, what should, must, all of those words, just letting go and allowing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Rita, you look like, okay. What's your question? Okay. Okay. So Rita's sharing an idea for helping people analyze their behavior.
Mm.
Yeah. You guys can talk about it after the service if you'd like. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I personally don't have a therapy dog, but I love dogs.
I'm in the way.
But
Get
some of
out
my
of the way.
coworkers have therapy dogs. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
For those of you on the
Yeah.
stream, Bob's just finding out that Denver has snow. All right. Anyone else? So I suppose my last question, my last comment is just when we're trying to take care of ourselves, without like obsessing over like our toxic coping, you know, when we're trying to grow, that's kind of what you view as the spiritual side
Mhm.
of yourself.
Mhm.
And so for you, spirituality and the keys for your longevity have been self-care, like what a lot of us in the public discourse right now call self-care. And I've heard you say it's not self-care in the self-obsessive form. It's more taking care of yourself so that you can have margin to work with other people, so that you can care about other people and empathize and continue to be compassionate. And that's one of those things that I see show up in your life. You know, it you don't like slip into ultra clinician brain when I'm like, Bob, my heart is hurting over X, Y, or Z, and you're like, I see. How does that make you like you care about me,
Mhm.
and I can tell you care,
Mhm.
you know? I'm really grateful for that. You're one of those people who I think does practice what they preach, you know? Bob's also been one of those folks who've been like, all right, cool, you're doing this thing, and that's good, and that's important. What are you doing to take care of yourself? And I think we ought to do that with each other. I think we ought to walk alongside each other and check in. Like, how are you doing? Like, can I support you in any way? And also, how are you taking care of yourself? Sometimes we just need that. Bob, I'm really grateful for your time this morning. I hope you enjoy the books, and I'll see you for a cup of coffee in a few minutes.
Okay, sounds. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you.